for.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was in a little Project Owlnet working group, and we were talking about some of the eruptions. And so, yeah, we have been seeing a big eruption and boreal owls at several of the banding stations, which kind of hints to a winter of it. And so I have those dates actually marked on my calendar just in case, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But it
awesome.
is noon, so let me just give some introductions as folks are joining us, whether you're here in Zoom or you're watching on our Facebook Live, and welcome. This is the 12th and last Hoosier Birders Hour of 2024. It's been our chance to engage with both our membership and birders as a whole, and kind of talk about all sorts of topics. And whether you got questions that you're wanting to pose to some of the Indiana Audubon staff or some of our members, or some of the specific topics that we've been talking about the last year or so. It's been a joy just coming out here. I know it's not always convenient, so we have the recordings where you're watching this later in the evening hours. There's always so much to talk about with birds in Indiana. And I got a lot of folks here with us today, and a lot of folks to introduce. And I think a lot of folks are also off because it's the Friday before the holiday here. And so some more folks that are joining us online, watching us live today. So thanks for joining us for the Hoosier Birders Hour. Let me get through a couple of the updates before we get going here. First off, my name's Brad, the Executive Director for your Indiana Audubon. Also have Whitney Yorger with us, our communications and outreach manager. So she's always in the background, throwing in some of the links and helping you guys get into any of these virtual sessions or anything that you might be contacting Indiana Audubon about. And so it is the end of the year. And so it wouldn't be the end of the year without me having to do the obligatory end of year appeal and say, please help us. We have so many great things that are part of Indiana Audubon that you guys as members are a part of, whether it be the membership perks, different field trips that you might be participating on. We were just talking about the Duluth trip that's coming up in February. So many of our projects, the research initiatives, Chasing Melody for wood thrushes, Project Owlnet, Adopt a Shrike, the Waterbird and the Spring Longshore Flight Count, all part of Indiana Audubon, the Bird Records Committee that we have, and so many other access and things that we provide for our membership, such as the Birds of the World. Shari, you were just talking about it. You were on Birds of the World recently. What were you looking up?
I just put in sparrows, and an interesting Eurasian sparrow hawk popped up, and I was kind of going through it and just enjoying all the different information and things that you can find on there. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about that hawk. It just happened to be bam when I, looked up sparrows. So
So,
great resource though, really.
you're looking at $49 a year. That's free with an Indiana Audubon membership, and you can get that for 30. So yeah, what a steal to have that as part of Indiana Audubon. So many great things going on at the end of the year, and so I'll be frank. We have a lot of projects, and a lot of ideas, a lot of dreams, a lot of vision as that preeminent kind of voice for the birds in Indiana, and so. We do have about 20,000 being matched right now. A couple donors are helping to match everyone 1-to-1 right now if you donate before the end of the year. And we're about 10,000 shy of being able to kind of meet our goals of being able to fund these different projects that you love and support. So please consider going to indianaaudubon.org/donate and making a kind of an end of the year gift here before December 31st. So that's going on. We got a lot of field trips still coming in. We're in Christmas bird count season. So not always a lot of Indiana Audubon field trips going on as folks are participating in that. Maybe you've taken part in 1, 2, 3, or 6 different counts this year. But once we get to January, we'll be pivoting to some of our Eagle tours. And we have kind of the largest selection of winter Eagle tours from all the way down to Monroe to Salamone, Missinawa that'll be going on throughout January and February. You can go to indianaaudubon.org/events. You can read about that, as well as that Duluth trip that we were just alluding to. And if it's a boreal year, Shari, I'm keeping those dates set aside, and I'm going to run up there and join that field trip. I know there's still a couple spots left, but if you want to learn more about that and have a chance at great grays, boreals, hawk owls, snowy owls, as well as some of the different winter finches and crossbills, check that out again, indianaaudubon.org/events if you want to check that out. All right, so there's some of our updates to get those out of the way. Let me introduce some of our folks that we have with us today. We have Indiana Audubon Board Vice President and owner of the Lie Creek Burn, Shari. Say hi, Shari.
Hello, glad to be here.
And we got Wes Homoya, who's a bird expert extraordinaire, also doing some touring with Natural Selections Tour. Hey, Wes.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Brad.
And Wes, you just got back from Cuba, so are you freezing cold now?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock to the system, but just a couple more weeks and then I'll be going to visit my parents in Florida and working a birding festival there. So I just have to make it till then.
Yeah, there you go. Let me introduce all things Guardians of Downtown Birds, Andy Belt. Andy, thanks for joining.
Hey everyone.
You're not downtown today, are you?
No, I'm off today.
Great. And how about all things birds, period? Don Gorney. Don, thanks for joining us. Let me start right away. We had a little some kind of topics that we were kind of talking about. What could we chat about? It is the end of the year. And so it's kind of reflecting on that Hoosier birding year and some of the different things that maybe you guys have seen, experiences you guys have had over the course that have kind of brought joy. And it reminds me that just as birders, and I see this more than ever, is people are coming from so many different angles. And you have folks that are interested in, the science ends of things, the art and the pretty. So many folks I see, maybe are taking pictures of birds and they don't have binoculars. And so it's so interesting to see, what kind of hobby that you could have where you literally have, a little old lady in tennis shoes with, a big biker and a beard, kind of all enjoying birds together. And so as you guys are out birding with such a, amazing diverse groups that we have that call themselves birders, what is your guys' Indiana Bird of the Year? That was our first topic we wanted to throw in. And I was just kind of looking at some of the highlights that have been seen over the year. How about for you guys? And who wants to start? Like, what was your best bird that you saw this year? And it's got to be in Indiana.
I can start.
What was your
So
bird?
I kind of have a tendency to stay in my own county, which is Montgomery County, and that's where my property is, the Lye Creek Prairie Burn. So I had a Harris's sparrow, actually two Harris's sparrows show up on the property. So I would have to say that would be my best bird for the year. And like I said, for someone that kind of stays around, kind of sticks around my own area, that's a pretty good bird. So yeah, and it first started out, I was coming out to feed the birds just to kind of give a little background, and Rhiannon comes out, was coming out once a week to visit and bird, and I was pulling in to feed the birds, and it was in the evening time. She said, "Sherry, you're not going to believe this, but there is two Harris's sparrows here." And I have been waiting, like seriously hoping and praying that I would get another one this year. And so it's kind of like, darn it, I wanted to be the one to find them, but I was super excited for her and the property and the people to come and see it. So came back early the next morning and there were two. So eventually, between a lot of the fighting, they did not like each other. They may have come in at the same time, but they were not associating with each other at all. So anyway, one of them ended up, I think, kind of running the other one off eventually. But what a neat thing to have around. And I think there were 46 people that reported that bird on eBird and came out and visited the property. So just really cool and a great time to share experiences with each other, and the fun of birding and bird watching and all these interesting birds that come through Indiana. Just really cool. I love that aspect of it too, is the socializing and the sharing stories. And so many people, it was a life bird for them. So just fun, and right here in my own county, which even makes it even better. So
What cool spectrum you got. You get rarities that are maybe, at a private site, one person gets to see it, and you get like a big public site and you have 400 people that get that opportunity. There's Ryan's shot there. What an awesome close up. And but not just one, you said how many?
how many what?
How many Harris's?
I had two.
Two. So not just one, but two. What an
Yep,
awesome.
two came in, and it was kind of funny because you could notice by the actual the kind of looking at the field marks. So on the actual chest, one of them had a lot more brown on the center of the chest, and the other one was more black. So you could tell they were two different birds just by seeing those feathers on the front. So one might have been a little younger because I think they were both immatures. But just very cool, fun.
there seemed to have been like a big fall push that came into the upper Great Lakes that kind of trickled into Indiana, a couple more sightings than normal. I know the Dunes area got some Harris's sparrows. Didn't you guys get to see Harris sparrow also anywhere in the state, or anyone that's joining in the chat?
Sherry's birds.
What's that, Don?
I saw Sherry's 2 Harris
Sherry's.
sparrows at the
Cool.
burn.
Cool. Yeah, there were reports, I think, up Duluth of like 20 plus Harris sparrows that were coming in early October in single counts. So some good movement.
I saw
there.
Andy too. Andy came out.
A report of an Andy.
Another rare sighting.
Yeah.
I got to come see it with Sherry too. Spent a long time with them. It was great.
Awesome. What other birds? Birds of the year. Feels like there's like a big one missing.
Personally, I like the eagles, even
Eagles?
though they're pretty popular and are getting more and more common. But I have a question. Is there a golden eagle in northern Indiana,
Is there a golden eagle in northern
in
Indiana?
the Jasper County?
Well, yes, there is. Don, have you
Multiple
seen
ones.
recent reportings?
There are multiple ones in Jasper County. They tend to hang around Jasper Fish and Wildlife area, so it means they're in Jasper and Pulaski. But they have large territories, so it's not always easy to find them, and there are a lot of bald eagles in that area too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Jasper, Pulaski, that area there has been a fairly reliable spot the last couple of years. Probably the same golden eagle, probably in that area, or a couple of them. And as Don said, yeah, they can just be really hard to find. You can be driving through that area one day, not see them, and it's just kind of pure luck. And if anyone's been fantasy birding, that's one of my targets I'm looking for. And it's the golden eagle. They're just so hard to find. Don, bird of the year for you?
I didn't see it, but I think one of the birds of the year that nobody remembers because it was at a backyard feeder and a one-day wonder was a brambling back in January of 2024. The homeowners got a picture of it, which is great. Brambling is a Eurasian species that we have a couple records of in Indiana, but the last record I think was that might have been back in the 80s at Gibson County. So this was in Fort Wayne. To me, that's one of the best birds of the year. Unexpected, but nobody got to see it. My personal best of the year is the sooty terns that Gary Langell found at Lake Monroe. That was a species, it's a second state record, but it's the first live birds for Indiana. And so no birders had that for their Indiana list. So if you were able to get there that afternoon to see the pair, then you were lucky because they were only there that Sunday. And I think it was September 29th, following a hurricane passage, drove them up north, that they weren't seen on Monday the following day.
Wow.
So
wow.
Long overdue. The only other record, I'm in Lawrence, Indiana right now, northeast Marion County. The only other record for sooty tern is a dead one found about 2 miles from where I'm sitting in Lawrence, Indiana, which is just one of the cities within Marion County that still exists. In February of whatever year that was, the people found it at night, took a photo of it in their headlights. And it could be identified as a sooty. They went back the next day and the carcass wasn't there. And they were known birders, reputable known birders that found it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So yeah, sooty tern, there's a good bird.
I
And
see-
there's a Jaeger was down there the same day, right?
Acidic Jaeger was also there that gave great show, chasing the gulls and just being a Jaeger.
Andy or Wes?
Well, I was just gonna say, suffice it to say, if you're a sooty tern, you probably don't want to be seen in Indiana. It's not a good sign.
Yeah.
But so hopefully those two that we're seeing this year, we're able to make it back to proper habitat. I don't have any. I was looking back through sort of my calendar, my list. I don't know that I have any real crazy birds. I'm not much of a chaser in the state, but it's been a few months, but do you guys remember that there's a lot of hoopla about a natural event, the eclipse, that whole thing? That was a really fun moment, an event for me, and some of the birds that I saw, singing and being active during that event, or I think I consider my birds of the year, just that whole
Bird
experience,
moment.
hearing the nocturnal stuff and crepuscular stuff
Uh-huh,
being active. That was pretty neat.
Yeah. What an opportunity, here in Indiana. We had that go right through the state and right through the Indianapolis area for so many people, so many birders. We were at Mary Gray, and same thing. Everything's quieted down. The birds stopped singing. Gray blue heron started kind of heading to roost, and someone even had like a barred owl was hooting, I guess, during that couple minute window there before everything turned back on. So that's a really good one. Andy, how about you?
So I could go with the obvious one, brown booby, but I think I'll go with Chuck Will's widow. I don't get out as much as I used to before I had kids, so my time birding is very limited, and especially if I go out to places at night. But this Chuck Will's widow was just east of Bloomington, I think, on Allen Creek Road, and I can't remember who initially heard it, but I went down there a few weeks later, not expecting it to be there, and hearing a lot of whippoorwills. But yeah, I got the very distinct recording of a Chuck Will's widow. That's a first for me.
Excellent. Yeah, always a good bird. Can be kind of hard to pickle. They can be there one year and then not the next. And I've spent some time. Actually, I think down in that same area, I've spent a few nights unsuccessfully over the years trying to find chucks in that area, and have had better luck in the Green Sullivan.
That's what saw most of the eBird records, and I considered it, but it's a 4-hour round trip for me.
So you alluded to it, Andy. So let me just pull it up and share it here. So how many of you guys saw this by chance? Few?
I should have went. There's no excuse, really. I think it was just getting away, finding the time to get down there, but
Don, Wes, Andy? Any of you guys? Whitney, did you see it?
Saw it.
What is this?
So what is this?
Yes.
The unexpected. Yeah. So Don, you remember the date? The history of this bird?
I believe it was June 6th. No, it was first seen
That was
June
the
3rd.
17th.
Oh, look.
It was seen June 3rd at Spring Mill State Park by the naturalist and someone else. It was reported to a well-known birder in the state who didn't act upon the sighting until 3 days later, and then announced it to the rest of Indiana. And that created the deluge of birders going to Spring Mill State Park. So thankfully, the birds stuck around, and it stayed for a total of 32 days. It did not stray far from kind of a small lake there behind the nature center, and a lot of times gave great views. Sometimes it posed on the dock right near shore. Other times it was just across the narrow body of water. So it was a really neat sighting.
Wow. What an incredible sighting. And it had been there for 3 days.
Yes.
I went the second day after it became public knowledge, thinking that I wouldn't have another chance and not realizing it was going to be there for about a month.
And I wouldn't have expected either, because that lake is fed from the cave. So like, that's pretty cold water for a booby to be fishing in. The fish are slower.
And that's a real rarity. It was a young bird, a juvenile. Brown boobies, like most large birds, don't nest. They don't breed until they're 4 or 5 years of age sometimes. And so young birds are more prone to wander around, even though some adults wander. So getting one in Indiana is rare enough, but that's our second brown booby. There was one in Lebanon, Zionsville, Indiana, Boone County, 5-6 years ago, over a retention pond. It was seen by a birder on a retention pond, and Whitney was there. There were probably 40 of us that got there within 45 minutes to an hour in the lady's backyard waiting for the bird to return, but it never did.
Wow.
Luckily, she got video of it.
I remember the video.
Eating supper on her screened-in porch when she saw the bird. So she got video that demonstrated it was, and I think it must have been an adult brown booby, because we didn't have I'm not sure. Maybe that gets revisited, depending on the age class, since they split that species this year as well.
I did go to try to see that along with a lot of other people, and it did not. I was bummed. I'm like, oh, darn, it never showed back up. That was, I think, Lisa Burr's place.
It was.
Yeah. Well, that's a part of the chase. A couple of years ago, going for 300. I remember a brown pelican that was west of Indy at a little lake. It was like a holiday or something, and busting down from Chesterton. And I drove as fast as I could, 2.5 hours, pulled in just to have them all turn around and say it left 10 minutes ago. And so that's never fun when that happens.
Yep, I was there for that one too. I've missed a few, that's for sure.
Did you see that one?
No, I just missed it. Like I had just got there and they said it just flew east and it just kept going. It never turned around and came back. So I was like, oh well, win some, you lose some.
Yeah, well, you just go to Florida and they're everywhere.
Yeah.
That's good birds for the year from all you guys there. And I was just looking at one of the reports yesterday, which I was really I'm unfamiliar with it. And this may be, I don't know if Wes or Don, you guys are more familiar, but the whole splitting of these gulls and this Vega gull that was seen again yesterday. So as I understand it, correct me, but we have herring gulls, and then they've been split, and I did get a European herring gull got added armchair for me, but then was it a 3-way split? And then Vega, was that a third split, or was that the American European split? I guess I don't really know much about this species and how to tell it apart that these guys were able to do yesterday, and then again in January.
European, I didn't follow the split of Smithsonius you're talking about, if that's a separate.
The Vega gull.
Vega, but where's Smithsonius? Smithsonius.
Well, I'm just looking it up here now. So herringull split into American herringull. That's our Smithsonianus, and then
Okay.
European, Mongolian, and Vega. So 4. Yeah.
And the Vega's got a slightly darker back, it looks like.
If gulls aren't
then-
confusing enough.
Now you gotta look for a Vega. So, but
Yeah,
hats off
I-
to those guys looking and doing that ID. That's
And that-
tough and a big.
That's not the first one that was found at the dump. There was one seen there in January of this year as well.
Mhm.
Probably the
Yeah.
same bird.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. So good food there.
So, and Brad, I made a note about that, and this is maybe also tying into one of your other topics for later, but about developments or discoveries in the world of birds, but just some of the new names that we have to get used to. That's one of them, that American herringull. But there's a few
Yeah,
others.
we were referring to some internal chat earlier about significant development or discoveries that have happened this year that we can talk about that others had noted. And so you're talking about a lot of the name changes that have occurred or will be occurring.
Yeah, well, just some name, just some getting used to new names. That's always part of the birding world. But yeah, American herringull. We got it's American barn owl now. Another one that got split because it has a large global distribution. Northern house wren. Can't just say
Yeah.
wren now. And what was the other one I had written down? Western cattle egret, although that's been a minute, but yeah, some of these name changes takes a little bit. It's going to take a little bit to get used to.
I get a little bit confused about eBird too and how to report those birds properly. You know what I'm saying? So I guess it's something that because I know like on eBird it even says something like Eastern this or Western that. You know what I mean? I think pine
Some
palm
stuff.
warbler is one of them.
Yeah, bird. That's if you want to report to a subspecies level beyond the species level. So
the confusion
I
with
didn't mean to
eBird,
interrupt you, but I do get confused on that. Well, how to report that properly.
confusion with eBird also stems from eBird uses the Clements checklist, which is a world checklist and is different from the American Ornithologist Society's checklist, which ABA largely follows. So the American Ornithologists Society used to be Union. Their North American checklist, which covers through Central America, is just covers those birds for Canada, US, Mexico, and the Central American states, countries. And Clements is different from the AOS checklist.
Interesting.
So it causes confusion.
But Sherry, what you'll see is of those that are logging barn owls or herring gulls, the changes have already been integrated in the eBird, and if you were the nominate species in those areas would have been automatically switched that were a lumped species if they were split. So most folks should just see all the new names now integrated in. The one Wes that really still throws me off is the one that's kind of gone Madonna or Cher, and now it's just redpoll.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's something missing still. I want some sort of front end to that name.
Yeah, so we'll deal with the red polls in our Duluth trip. That was one of always those extra birds. The hoary red pole was something we always looked for and was like a special bird for people. Now we're just dealing with red poles in general.
Speaking of which, finch season coming in, it's kind of pivot. It's Christmas bird count season. So every year, December 14th to January 5th, National Audubon's been coordinating it for 125 year plus now. Counts that are being done, and a lot of new counts that are happening this year. Are any of you guys doing Christmas bird counts this year?
Yeah.
Which ones you got?
3.
3?
Yeah, well, tomorrow, I'll be doing Northeast Indy Christmas bird count. It's on northeast part of Marion County, around Fort Harrison and surrounding areas. Ben Miller and I are the co-compilers for that count now.
Kevin Strunk helping.
Yes, he is this year. And tomorrow, or Sunday is the Eagle Creek count, and then I always do the Jamestown count too. That's a week from tomorrow.
Yeah. Don, what are you doing?
Just found 2 days ago. I've done that most years. There's been a couple times that snow has caused me not to go, but it's always nice getting down to Goose Pond to see the raptors and the waterfall and a lot of other things that are about.
Other counts any you guys are doing? Anyone doing any that you want to drop in the chats?
Well, there's I was going to help with the turkey run count, which is tomorrow, but unfortunately, I'm going to be baking Christmas cookies with my daughter. I shouldn't say unfortunately, but I'm not going to be able to make that one. But there's another one, the 30th in Newport, that I'm going to try to help with.
Holly's joining Wes in Jamestown. I see in the comments. So, I read an article a couple of weeks ago that was kind of arguing over the value of Christmas bird counts today. And, we have something that's quite historical, been going on for, well over 100 years. But the argument was that because of eBird, every day is a Christmas bird count. And that sort of like the emphasis to get that data collection and to have that coordinated effort doesn't really exist anymore because of eBird and their ability to gather all this citizen science data. So if that's the case, where does the value sit for a Christmas bird count for you guys that do it? Is it still net data because of the history of that data set, or is there a social aspect you guys are part of in these Christmas bird counts? Every Christmas bird count runs differently. Some of them have 3 people, some of them have 50 people that are participating. Do you guys have, what's the value of it for you guys that do it?
When I have done them, it's the social aspect of it. Just being able to see people I haven't seen in a while and go out and bird with them.
Yeah, I'll chime in. 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's what I love doing Christmas bird counts every year. I look forward to them about as much as actual Christmas. It's so much fun. It's just a tradition that I'll do for the rest of my life. And as far as the data, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's not maybe it's not as important now as it used to be with the advent of eBird, but certainly more people are getting out and birding in the winter than would normally. So it's definitely additional data that we wouldn't be getting otherwise. And we're also birding differently than people normally do. We're covering little nooks and crannies that and counting bird, every single individual bird. People definitely don't bird like that otherwise. So
Good point.
I do think it is additional data that we wouldn't be getting otherwise. And yeah, it is just a great family and friend tradition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I definitely think I think its success going down the road in the future will be integrating that kind of educational component and using it as kind of a community social event to introduce people into birding. It's a time of year when it's not necessarily as overwhelming with all the bird song and activity going on, but as you mentioned too, it can be the motivation to get outdoors too when it's cold out.
From an eBird point of view, in terms of research, one of the issues with eBird is it's very skewed data. Most people only bird during migration time. When I've tried to pull some of the data out winter and summer, breeding season especially, there's not a lot of birding, so we don't have as many data points for that time of the year. So it's good that we still have the winter, the Christmas counts.
Judy has a question, says, what's the origin of the Christmas bird count as opposed to a May Day bird count, for example?
Ooh,
I think she
Anyone
just
remember
answered that.
Anyone remember the history of the first Christmas bird count?
I bet Don does.
Frank Chapman, 1902, maybe?
I think 1900.
Okay.
Yeah, Chapman. I remember the name Chapman.
He was involved with National Audubon at the time.
Mhm.
And the story is that around Christmas time, a lot of guys, when they got together, at that time, they would go out and they would have hunts and see which team could kill the most animals.
Yeah.
And Frank Chapman wanted to have an activity that was non-consumptive, was to go out and look and appreciate the birds and not shoot them. And it grew from there.
So in there, the Christmas bird count was born. And then May Day count. Oh boy, I've heard different stories on different May Day counts that occur. And obviously today we have Cornell and what's the other one? The Environment for the Americas that kind of promote the International Migratory Bird Day that occurs. Many years ago, there used to be like an Indiana Audubon big day that occurred in May. Some folks may remember that. And I don't even know if my interpretation was correct, but I was told that way back in like the 70s, there was a friendly competition between Indiana and Illinois. And so we held these two big days, and then Don seems to be shaking his head. So you may be the only verification I've ever heard of that story, the genesis of that. But then somehow it must have separated because there really hasn't been any kind of connection between the two states that I'm aware of.
I just made that up. I totally made May Day up, so I'm shocked to hear that there actually was something.
Yeah.
We copied Illinois that had the second Saturday of May. They would go out and count birds. It was kind of a peak of migration for Illinois and Indiana at that time. And it was another activity that could be done similar to the Christmas bird count, but the May Day count was by county. And yeah, I think I'm not sure how friendly, it wasn't really a rivalry or anything. We just copied what Illinois was doing, and that was the county May Day counts. They were fun, in my opinion.
Somebody
They were
tried to steal the
enjoyable.
show.
Yeah.
Another bird watcher.
I do remember that now because it was county level and it was a single day. So it's not like you're going to get, all these people that come in and help you do like you would do for a count. There's everyone's stuck to their own counties having to do it. And so, but then it was interesting that you had that whole county that tried to bird. And so you could really try to build up a list for your county. And they were fun. I remember doing a few in Porter County. Ken Brock used to drive me out to Kimmel Road and just drop me off at the east boundary, and I would then kind of walk my way back through the whole entire park that day.
Things between the Christmas and May Day counts is Christmas counts, you have the wintering birds and the permanent residents. And so a lot of times a individual group will only have 30 to 50 species when they go out. And on May Day, the second Saturday of May for Indiana, is the peak of migration usually. And so you could easily get over 100 species. And for me, it was a great way of learning birds, going out with people who are better than me and learning birds when I first started doing that, and getting it, getting essentially an 8 to 10 hour lesson over one day,
Yeah.
seeing all these species.
Wasn't
Birders pay a
there,
lot for that guiding now.
wasn't it a vermilion flycatcher that showed up on somebody's Christmas bird count? Wasn't it there was what was it last year? Didn't that bird
Yeah,
found by somebody that was
Christmas
counting
count?
birds or something?
it was Peter Scott.
Way the Terre Haute count, that's where the vermilion was in December and January.
Yeah, so see, you never
Mhm.
know. That's such a, I mean,
Yeah.
how would
You
you?
know, I had a birder out that time of year normally.
Right.
Find that. And so, yeah, some great things there. And yeah, I saw notes.
I was going to say, Barney Dunning found a black-headed grosbeak one year in Tippecanoe County on a Christmas bird count in a place no birder would ever travel because it was along railroad tracks of a seldom used railroad. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a regular railroad. It was, I'm not sure exactly what it was.
kind of hitting all those little
Cool.
nooks and crannies. The Indiana Audubon, we host our own Christmas bird count. It's at Mary Gray Bird Sanctuary. It's on the 28th. So you can also go to the events page or on the Christmas bird count National Audubon site and get information if you're interested in helping there. They got that big 15-mile diameter circle. So there's a lot of areas, a lot of country roads with a lot of kestrels that need covered out there if you're free on December 28th. Another thing out there that you're going to look for maybe on a Christmas bird count that you're not going to find on a May Day count would be snowy owls. And I've had an influx of folks asking me how to find a snowy owl. So what is your best advice on locating a snowy owl?
I always check fields, and they seem to follow highways, like major highways, like 231. When we had the eruption year, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago, we had 4 or 5 that showed up in Montgomery County, and they were just about all of them were like along 231 on telephone poles and things like that. But there was one in Tippecanoe County year before last that just was plopped in the middle of a field, just sitting there. So, I mean, when I'm driving, I just look. I've been fooled by white plastic bags before, but you just don't ever know. So, I mean, I would just, anytime you're driving, I mean, of course, watch the road, but keep an eye on the telephone poles and passing fields. It's what I would do.
Airports, agricultural areas, as Shari was saying, open fields, always a good idea to look around.
Are they seen mostly in the northern state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're a northern species. So the further north you go, the better chance you're going to have to see them, whether that's northern Indiana or northern Great Lakes states or on up into Canada. But just to add, chime in, what other folks are saying here, basically, whether it's snowy owls or any bird, you try to, think like a snowy owl or whatever it is. So in this case, you've got these raptors that typically, are in tundra or big wide open spaces. So they want to be in big wide open spaces. They don't want to be in heavily forested areas. And think about what they like to eat. That's basically all they're trying to do while they're down here are not die, not get hit by a car, and find something to eat. So most snowy owls that are this far south are probably a little bit stressed and a little bit, hungry. So they're looking for small rodents, voles and deer mice and things like that. And so they're, one thing I think about is like, where do I see a lot of red-tailed hawks? You know, red-tailed hawks are kind of the common local equivalent, at least habitat and foraging wise, during the day to what these snowies are doing. So wherever you see a lot of red-tailed hawks, that's probably a good idea to be looking. That's where you can look for snowies. They're wanting the same kinds of things to eat. And you know, along highways and near airports, you guys mentioned that the reason they're there is because that's where a lot of small rodents get piled up. The same reason you see red-tailed hawks around airports or along highways is because all those small rodents are in all these fields, and then they hit a big fence or a big highway. They don't want to cross that, so they get kind of, you know, they stop there, and then kind of they're just going parallel to those barriers. And the red-tailed hawks know that. That's why you see red-tailed hawks along highways, and sometimes, you know, unfortunately, sometimes getting hit, you know, as roadkill. They took a risk, but yeah, that's why they're there, is because that's where all these small rodents are getting piled up. And so same thing with snowies.
So this isn't probably on the agenda itself, but this might be a good time to talk about ethics as far as goes for, you know, watching and, you know, seeing owls. What are your thoughts on how to approach that? I mean, I think that is something that gets discussed a lot. Some people say, oh, it's great, you know, we want everybody, want to share the owl with everybody to see it. But then where's the line? Where is what people don't realize is that, let's say one person goes and they move the owl, and oh, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to move the owl. But what they don't think is that 50 other people could come after that and do the same thing. So
Yeah.
it might be a good time to kind of just discuss that.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was on my mind as we're discussing it. The chasing can sometimes be a problem, especially when these owls come pretty far south like that and they're pretty hungry and starved. They will hunt early mornings, evenings, so they will hunt during the day. That's when they get, well, as they're getting chased, they won't be able to hunt, so they're already on the edge of starvation. But yeah, that's always a problem. Of course, everybody wants to see them. It's an amazing experience to see them, but also to kind of be aware. I always think you don't need those really close-up shots, but then you see, you know, 10 people moving really close to get the picture while you're trying to stay further away, and that then once again chases the owl further and further. So yeah, anybody, any other thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts on other owls too, especially when they're found roosting, but you know, talking about the snowy owls.
I think snowy owls have a little bit of a uniqueness to them because they essentially, you can leave north out of Indy and you're not going to see any of the Arctic. You're not going to see a polar bear. You're never going to see a caribou, but here is an actual piece of an Arctic that it comes Indiana. And so suddenly, you know, everybody switches and, you know, they get really excited about seeing it. And so it is a double-edged sword about wanting to engage and educate people and get them really excited about these kind of birds. But there is a serious risk, and other owl species has some other risks as well. So, you know, what do? You hide all just not let anyone know about any of the snowy owls, or do you start with no and then take it case by case on how the viewing opportunity is? Because you don't necessarily want to rob people, you know, of that opportunity too, to learn about it and support it, and then maybe want to, you know, donate to a cause like Project Snowstorm.
And that's the tricky part, right? You want people to experience it, because as we know, if you're not emotionally connected to something, it's harder to care about it. So
I think it's the education part of it. I think sharing is important. I think the bird, you know, had people, it can be a spark for someone that turns into a love and a passion, somehow caring about birds. So I get that part of it. I think just like reaching out and reminding people, you know, how important it is to keep our distance and enjoy them from afar. And there's nothing wrong with getting a picture, but you know, keep your distance. Remember the bird's there to hunt and eat, and every time we move it has to expend energy and time to do that. And I think that is what we're, just talking about. This is what,
Yeah.
telling people about it. Now, some people just don't know. They don't. And I know Indiana Audubon had put out a kind of a little post about, ethics in birding and being careful about how we approach these birds when, we're excited about them, but yet we have to show some respect and think about them as well. So I think just educating and talking about it is really important, but not keeping the birds from people and not sharing
Yeah.
the excitement with others.
And
There's
the nice thing is, sorry, go ahead, Brad.
no. I'd say there are some go-to spots, like I can think of like Michigan City Harbor, where they come in and oftentimes they're going to be out there on the break wall, and that's where, hey, people can all go look at it, because unless you got a little dinghy, you're not going to be able to get out there and, be able to harass it or disturb it anyway. But you are going to have those areas that are going to be an unexpected near urban area that could quickly become overwhelmed and pressure on the bird and stress.
And what I was going to say with people being more educated about it, the nice thing is the more people keep their distance, the more people get to see it and experience it. So,
True.
I've seen it quite a lot when a lot of birders show up. It can happen, and somebody, comes and they don't get to see it because by the time they get there, yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely an amazing experience to see them. And for me, the trip to the UP with the Indiana Audubon was amazing to see. We got, I think, right, you were leading, so we got like 22 snowy owls that trip. And
That was a big
I
year,
remember,
man.
yeah, and all I remember thinking was that, yep, they're exactly in the same spots that I would expect the red-tailed hawks to sit, just like Wes was saying.
We had one last year in Duluth that sat right by the railroad tracks, just on trees that follow the railroad tracks. It's on 7.
It's nice for
Yep.
stand too, right?
Yep.
Whittling in there. So, but yeah, as you guys have mentioned, in the chat, there's a little link to some ethical owl viewing and some just different general tips and such as you're looking for, whether it be snowy owls or long-eared owls or saw-whet owls. And Project Owlnet's a great opportunity to have that interaction with saw-whet owls without having to be shaking cedar trees trying to find one in the wintertime and they're so impossible to see. Well, here's an opportunity to get up close look at it and then learn about a little bit of research along the way too. So great programs like that kind of help with the viewing opportunities for those kind of secretive or sensitive species. We are almost out of time. Let me ask one more question. It is Christmas next week. Christmas season. What do you guys have on you guys' Christmas wish list this year that is bird related? Anything new this year that now some of you guys are probably, you got everything, right? You got everything you need for birding. You got every field guide, you got binoculars. Can there be anything left? But tell me you got something on your Christmas wish list that's bird related this year.
I do. I would like to put in a water feature, a really nice water feature. I think that's so nice to have for the birds, and it attracts all kinds of birds in. And so that's something I want to work on. Is I've got the big insert to put it in. I just need to get the pump and all the stuff that goes along with it. So that's my thing.
Will that be going at home or a burn?
Well, I would like to put one at the burn, but my biggest problem is electricity. So I'd have to figure out a way, whether it be solar powered or what, to be able to, which I'm putting that out there for the public. So if you guys got any ideas on how to do something like that, to be able to run something like that without electricity. I run out of water every year there, and I supplement with lots of waste water, bird baths and pans on the ground, dog bowls. I put it all out for the birds because there is no water there. So, but that's something I'd really like to do for my birds there. And I do have a little bit of water now, but it's struggle in those really hot, dry months without any water sources there. So that would be my Christmas present to my birds.
The Christmas
Yeah.
What else is out there this year? What's under your tree?
Well, I asked for a rangefinder. That's something that I use sometimes for work, but could use for work. Just determining how far away a bird is, which you could use for making sure you don't get too close to a snowy owl.
There you go.
How about the infrared stuff, Wes?
Yeah, thermoscope. Yeah, that's on the to-do list as well. There are some models that are getting a little bit better and cheaper, better value. Zeiss has some. So yeah, 2025. I don't know that I'll be getting one for Christmas, but I think in 2025 I'll be investing in getting one of those for my tours.
Okay, well, tell me which one you end up with. It's on my list too.
Okay, no problem.
They're fun with owls at night. I've used them for like winter barred owls, and it can just be so, you know, dead quiet, and you just hear a little twig break, and you pull up the scope, and there he is in the darkness, and yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'd like one of those myself. I think that would be really cool to go out to the burn at night and just kind of scan the tree line and find out what's in there.
How much detail do they show? The infrared binoculars.
Depends on which model you get, how much you want to spend.
Like
But
a
the top of the line ones are pretty impressive now
Mhm.
at the detail. Yeah.
Mhm.
Probably not in my budget.
Yeah.
Probably what, 2,000 probably is probably you're starting to get to the better quality ones.
Yeah. Yeah. You're looking at, for I think on the lower end is
Yeah.
maybe 1,000
Yeah.
but yeah,
Because
the high end ones are like 2, 3, 4,000, 5,000. Yeah, they're they're
what
an
I've seen
investment
is
for
just like
sure.
vague outlines.
What's that?
What I've seen has just been like vague outlines when you find, and not hardly worth investing that amount of money in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Start saving up now then.
just go birding at sunrise. It's easier. My Christmas wish list, which I got early this year, was the haiku box. And so kind of obsessed with sounds and listening. And so now I have, it's a little recorder that goes up on your roof, and it analyzes through BirdNet in real time, and through an app, I know what birds are calling in my yard. And so now I spent a couple $100 to learn about all the house finches and cardinals that I got in my backyard right now. So I'm hoping it'll pay off here in migration as birds are calling. I'll be able to detect them flying over. But it's created a new problem for me is there's a local suburban goose flock that flies around, and now it's been picking up every morning a cackling. So now I'm like locally obsessed with finding this flock where they're going and finding this cackling goose that BirdNet is saying is calling. It kind of sounds like a cackling to me too when I hear it. So that's kind of my Christmas rabbit hole that I'm going down right now.
Christmas came early for me, and I have something similar to the haiku box. I've got a Terra. I'm still troubleshooting it, but it works the same as the haiku box. It's able to detect what birds are flying around on your property. Should be exciting to find out what I'm missing in the spring.
And the Terra will pick up the birds with transmitters too. It
Yes.
connects to
Modus attachments to it.
yeah.
So does like software come with it, or does everything come with it you need to?
So it has, there's an app for that. So you connect the Terra device to the app, and you use your phone to listen in on what's in your yard, or I still have to explore those features. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but yeah, it's it was a Kickstarter project in 2021, and it finally got a chance to send out to everyone.
Awesome.
We're in a new birding digital age, and these things are going to accelerate fast. These terras and haikus and IDs, and it's an interesting new world we're heading into. And with that, we're out of time, guys. It's been an hour. So I want to thank everyone that's both you guys that joined here that kind of give some of your input and expertise, and everyone that's watching and everyone that's an Indiana Audubon member. With that, it's been a great year, great kind of reminiscing on some of the things that we've seen and done this last year and experienced. And I will look forward to seeing all you guys in 2025 for some new programs, new ideas, and new birds to see. So thanks, everybody, and see you guys next year. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thanks,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.